IVM.
News Kids on the Block. We bring to you stories that top the nation's papers. Fresh from the Ascend International School and IVM desk. Hi, I'm Kavya.
I'm Anya.
And I'm Trivik.
And welcome to the third episode of News Kids on the Block, where we give you all the top news updates of the week.
The world of sports has had a lot going on lately. So let's start with a quick series of the 6 top sports highlights from this week.
Why don't we start with tennis? So, the most popular thing in tennis right now is the Wimbledon, which just got over. And in the Wimbledon men's singles final, Djokovic beat Berrettini and he went on to win his 20th Grand Slam and his 3rd consecutive Wimbledon title. And in the women's part of it, Ashley Barty, who was number 1 in women's, she took the title. And yeah, so both the number ones won in their respective categories.
Well, next up we have the Olympics, which are slowly approaching. But as they approach, Japan has declared an emergency in order to maintain safety throughout the duration of the games. They also announced there will be no spectators.
In basketball, the NBA, the Phoenix Suns faced off the Bucks in the finals. And the Phoenix Suns won. And a fun fact, they are the first team to have made it to the finals without making it to the playoffs in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that the last time that they made it was in the 2009 and 10 campaign.
Moving on to the more violent world of UFC fighting, Dustin Poirier defeated Conor McGregor via a first round TKO where McGregor broke his leg, so that was a pretty gruesome fight.
In the world of cricket, we'll start with the Indian women team who won the second T20, now leveling the T20 part of their long all-format series against England. They drew the test. They lost the ODI series, and now, the decider for the T20 is here. Something that's really improved with them has been their fielding. Harleen Deol took an amazing catch, which even Narendra Modi called phenomenal. But it was really quite a catch. So yeah, that's really exciting to know. Well, in the world of cricket, after some crazy amount of COVID, essentially the entire England squad changed as they made their way to Pakistan for the series, and Ben Stokes was the captain for it. He also played his 100th ODI and they defeated Pakistan. So I think we can all say that Ben Stokes was super stoked about the whole thing.
What a beautiful pun, Anya.
Thank you.
I had a better pun actually. You said I was quite a catch. I was gonna say like me, get it? Because I am a catch.
That's terrible. That's really bad.
Trivik, please move on.
Okay, moving on. I'm gonna take a bit of time here because you all know how obsessed I am with football, both of you. The European Championships ended this weekend and I have been very bored since it ended, but let's talk about what happened on the final day. Italy won the championship after a penalty shootout versus England where both goalkeepers had heroic performances, but it ended in the favor of the Azzurri, taking the Italians' count of European Championship wins to 2. And on the verge of a move to PSG, Gianluigi Donnarumma lifted the title of Player of the Tournament, becoming the first goalkeeper to do so in the history of the tournament. And I have to say, this has been the best European Championship I've been alive for. I know a lot of you might disagree with me, saying the 2016 one was better, or possibly even the 2012 one, but I really loved this championship. I thought there were so many great games, underdogs by the likes of Denmark, and failed underdogs by the likes of Turkey, and England getting all the way to the final with It's Coming Home playing on repeat all summer. I think the vibes were immaculate. And I'm looking forward to the World Cup in Qatar, which will take place next December.
Thanks, Trivik. That will bring us to the end of the sports segment. We will take a quick break, but don't go anywhere.
Feeling overwhelmed, anxious, struggling with too many obstacles, don't know where your life is headed? Well, if you are dealing with one or all of these, tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast, because in each episode, I share a life lesson, a life hack, a pro tip that can help you get your life back on track. All episodes are available on the IVM website, IVM Podcast app, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts from.
Hi, welcome back. You are listening to News Kids on the Block, and I'm Anya. Well, recently, the billionaire Sir Richard Branson went 88 kilometers up into space before coming back. He's the owner of the Virgin Group, who have created this Virgin Galactic flight and it's a starting point when it comes to space tourism.
Last week we did a story about Srisha Bandla. She was one of the people on this flight. But anyways, Anya, where did this flight fly?
So this particular flight flew above New Mexico, which is in the United States. And the vehicle that the company has been developing, the vehicle that flew, I think it's been in development for 17 years.
Wait. So can you tell us some more about the technology behind this flight?
The Unity vessel uses a feather mechanism, which according to this article by BBC means that it can't achieve the velocity and altitude necessary to keep it up in space to circle the globe, but rather it's designed to give passengers stunning views at the top of its climb and allow them a few minutes to experience weightlessness.
Weightlessness, that is definitely something I'd like to experience.
So yeah, while this flight has definitely shown a lot of progress when it comes to the world of space tourism, something in another sphere that we've seen a lot of progress this week has been when Uttar Pradesh's Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath announced a new policy in regards to the population. And this policy is particularly interesting for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a bill that basically talks about something kind of like a two-child policy, which is something that we've really debated a lot about implementing in our country, because India is, as you might know, the second most populous country in the world. And then the other thing that I personally found interesting in the bill was that in order to basically reduce the population or control the population of Uttar Pradesh, they've introduced a lot of measures when it comes to things like contraception, abortions, and maternity health.
I think what's really interesting about this is how many different perspectives there can be to this, because there are so many pros to having a two-child policy in terms of population control, but then there's so many people that can say that by having a policy like this, shouldn't it be my decision how many children I want to have?
I agree with you. I think the policy can seem very controlling and everything, but on the other hand, like Yogi Adityanath suggested in his speech, ecologically and economically, there may not be enough resources in order to just sustain the population. So there are pros and cons like there are with everything. But I think that it's great that they're talking about contraception, even if it's in this very weird kind of way. I think it's quite interesting, especially since female infanticide rates are through the roof in the country without there being like a record per se. So I think it's all about finding a certain balance, and they hope to implement this through a series of population funds. The other thing to note is that people who do not adhere to this two-child policy would be debarred from various benefits and welfare schemes, to name a few, which I think is also interesting in terms of just how the policy might play out, but time will tell. But it's definitely a significant step when it comes to population growth and control and just policy in India.
100%. And I also think, like you were saying, there's such a fine line of balance between these two things, especially because it's so easy to, like, when you're not first-hand experiencing it, it's very easy to make these kind of assessments and these sort of assumptions. But yeah, I think it's just about that balance.
Yeah. So now that we've heard about this, we'll take a quick short break for you to deliberate it, read it over. There was a really great article from First Post from which we've got a lot of our information for this particular story, and we'll be back after a quick break.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Would like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Cred, Ciet, and Global Victoria. Thank you so much for making this possible. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by the hilarious and extremely charming illusionist and therapist Suhani Shah. They talk about different aspects of magic like sleight of hand, mind reading, mentalism, and more. The Habit Coach completed 500 episodes, 500, and Ashton has a special message for us on the occasion. Do check that out. We had Lekini Desai, founder of the India Ethnic Company, talk to Varun Digirala about their story and the Hatke marketing idea that made them popular. On Naan Curry, South Africa celebrated World Chocolate Day. They took us through the origins, history, economics of chocolate, and shared their memories. On Tere Mere Raste, Keshu Chaturvedi shares an interesting story from Leh. Check out an updated version of the Traveling Professor's Diary. It's now rechristened as Smarter with Sid. Same old brain filled with news stories and insights. This time, listening to know why you should keep things simple. And finally, check out Global Victoria Tech Talks. This one is in partnership with Global Victoria, the trade arm of the Government of Victoria in Australia. The edtech and gaming industries are booming in Victoria, Australia, and this series is meant to showcase that. And with that, let's get you back to your show.
Hi, you're listening to News Kids on the Block. I'm Kavya. And so we usually start with a COVID update, but this time we decided to end with it. And obviously we can't let you guys off the hook without a little COVID update, since it's all that is in our lives right now. Today we decided to do a bit of something a bit different than usual. At this point, a lot of people are getting their vaccinations and their second dose of their vaccination. And there have been a lot of questions about how things will change after the second dose and how will the rules be lifted, how will things work. So we decided to share some answers with you guys. These questions were answered by News 18 and we thought they were really relevant in today's world, and we decided to answer them and share them with you. Trivik, do you want to kick us off with the first question?
So the first question we have today is, are you still at risk and can you still be a carrier?
So after getting your second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, the risk of you getting COVID and being a carrier is very minimal, but there is still a possibility of that happening. So yes, you still are at risk, even though it's a very minimal risk, and yes, you still can be a carrier.
Well, do you still need to wear a mask and stay socially distanced if you've received both shots of the vaccine?
This really depends on the country and the place you're in. Like a lot of countries like the US and the UK, Trivik will tell us more about that in a bit, have lifted policies and lifted rules so that you don't have to wear a mask after your second dose. But India, especially being in the stage we're in right now, I don't think it's a wise decision to, even if you've got both doses, to not wear a mask. Especially since there in the world there have been new variants and there continue to be new variants. So I think at this point it's just safe to wear a mask as much as possible.
Yeah, actually from what I heard, on the 16th, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is set to he's going to abolish all COVID restrictions in the world. Basically, residents of the United Kingdom will go back to their normal life as it was pre-COVID, and I think that's pretty exciting and some positive news in terms of COVID.
Definitely, but we also have to compare India's situation to UK's and see how much worse of a situation we're in right now.
What do you do if you're experiencing COVID symptoms?
So like I've mentioned before, the chance of you getting COVID after your second dose is minimal, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible at all. So you'd rather be safe than sorry. If you are experiencing any COVID symptoms, first of all, do isolate yourself. Try not to do not go in public, and do not try to avoid contact with other people. Get a COVID test done just so you can rule out COVID, even if it's something else, because you'd much rather be safe than sorry when it comes to situations like this. But that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of News Kids on the Block. Don't forget to tune in to us every Friday for our fresh take on the news from across the globe.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network.
You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts. That's IVM PODCASTS on Twitter and Instagram.
We'll see you next week. But till then, do share this episode with your folks and friends. Stay safe. And don't forget to do your homework.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I happen to be a peak performance coach and leadership coach by profession, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, your relationships, professions, careers. So tune in every Monday to unleash your inner power. Be safe, be well, be empowered.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.